Okay, so how are Demonology Warlocks doing in Battle for Azeroth's beta so far? Well, after doing roughly over 800 duels on my Demonology Warlocks alone on the BfA beta, I feel like I have enough experience to give a rough idea of how Demonology is doing and give you all an overview on how it fares in PvP, since that's exclusively what I've been doing most of my time on beta. To all of you who just want a quick summary and don't have much time to invest into this video, the gist of it is that they're still really good. They still have a lot of CC outside of Missing Inferno and gaining Shadow Fury. They don't rely on the big, giant Thaw kills, Chaos Bolt wannabe burst anymore. Their consistent damage is really good now. They don't have too much of a burst outside of the Demonic Tyrant. They can win a lot of duels. Don't worry about that. But they recently got their damage more than halved in the last major change. Doom is no longer a thing, demonic empowerment is gone, life tap is gone, and the overall flow of the spec is generally much smoother. So with that through, you basically got the gist of this video, so if that's all you needed, then you can be on your way. If you want to know the nitty gritty, we'll get to it. Right off the bat, as soon as I got the BfA beta access, I immediately made a Demonology Warlock. And then I went through a bunch of the things in the spellbook and noticed some significant changes. Demonic Empowerment being gone, Life Tap being gone, and we got Demon Bolt and Demonic Core. Now, Demon Bolt doesn't function like it does on live or in previous renditions of it. Right now, it acts mostly as a Power Blast, and we can get procs to have an instant cast and generate 2 soul shards. We get those procs via the Demonic Core passive. Basically what it does is when a wild imp dies or it's expired, it has a 10% chance to give you a charge of Demon Bolt. Now you may be thinking, man, that's a really small chance to get a Demon Bolt, isn't it? Yeah, it really is. But here's the thing, it has another effect. When the Dreadstalkers fade away, you are guaranteed a charge of Demonic Core. That means whenever you cast Dreadstalkers, you are guaranteed to get 2 charges of Demonic Core after 12 seconds. That gives us a sense of consistency with the spec, which I do greatly appreciate. Now, there's some neat little synergy with the this next ability I'm about to mention, Demonic Tyrant. It is the ability that replaces our Doomguard and Infernal. But it has a shorter cooldown than both of those, a 1.5 minute cooldown. And it buffs all of our demons damage by 15%, and it used to increase the duration by 15 seconds on any extra demons currently summoned. I say used to because they removed that feature in the recent change, but we'll get to that. The duration extension part of Demonic Tyrant led to a lot of neat little synergy with different types of abilities with the spec, such as you could have 1 charge of Dreadstalkers going out and you can cast Demonic Tyrant afterwards. This would mean that you would have enough time to spare on the first wave of Dreadstalkers to cast another Dreadstalkers, and thus would grant you 4 Dreadstalkers attacking the target at the same time. Granted, there's not going to be too much time remaining on the first wave of Dreadstalkers by the time you cast the second wave, but I digress. It's extra DPS having those first wave of Dreadstalkers be hammering at the target the entire time is quite significant. However, here's a kicker. If you empower the Dreadstalkers, that means you will have to wait 15 seconds longer than you would initially have to wait to get 2 charges of Demonic Core. So in the meantime, you're going to have to rely on your imps to give you that 10% chance per imp expiration to give you that proc, which is not very reliable at all. With that said, that means sometimes it's best to use Dreadstalkers after the Tyrant against targets that have high mobility or can crowd control a bunch of your pets at once, such as the Monk Leg Sweep and their ability to just dash away since your pets don't actually move too fast. Beast Mastery and Marksmanship Hunters, they can just literally just run around and dodge your pet's damage. Frost Mages can, well, all mages can just like flat out Frost Nova your pets and they won't do anything. So against classes like that, it's preferred to actually use your Dreadstalkers without empowering them. That means it would probably be best to use the Demonic Tyrant first, then Dreadstalkers, because then you would get those Demonic Cores quicker, which would give you 4 soul shards in return through the 2 Demon Bolts, on top of the damage that Demon Bolt provides. That means more Hand of Godans and enough fuel for the next wave of Dreadstalkers. So with a neat little mechanic like that, I was kind of thrilled, because with the existence of both the duration extension of Demonic Tyrant and the existence of Demonic Core as a passive, that can lead to several optional choices in the overall gameplay itself, which I think is really good. Because you can choose to empower your Dreadstalkers for more consistent damage against targets who can't move too much, or you will have to use the Dreadstalkers after the Tyrant so that you'll be able to get those Demonic Core procs faster, and that your pet won't be slowed and rooted the entire time. Now, the amount of crowd control we have is still roughly the same, since we have 3 Fears, a Mortal Coil, the optional secondary stun on top of the main Felguard stun. Basically, all that's really changed is that we lost Inferno in exchange for Shadow Fury, which isn't too much of a big deal at all. So let's just move on to the damage. Now, the damage that Demonology Warlocks can dish out initially it was quite absurd. The footage you're seeing so far is pretty much pre-nerf Demonology Warlocks, and as you may notice, it does a lot of damage in just the opener alone. That's because I use a very specific combo that I've yet to see another Demonology Warlock quite replicate. I've seen some get very, very close to what I do, but not quite. That used to completely one-shot anyone if they didn't use any defenses whatsoever. However, after the nerfs, that burst rotation now does only maybe up to 50% of the max health by the time Mortal Coil ends. So we have a few neat talents now. So on the top left, we have Dread Lash, which makes our Dreadstalkers do an AoE cone in front of it, doing 25% more damage as well with their initial Dread Bite, which is probably the best in this row in terms of PvE. I personally go Demonic Strength, which makes your Felguard charge a target and do a Fellstorm that does 400% increased damage. This is my personal favorite because it adds to the Tyrant damage. On the right, we have probably the least viable is Bile Scourge Bomber. So it's a 30-second cooldown, costs 2 soul shards, and doesn't do too much damage, but it is pretty on par with the Felguard's normal AoE sweep. However, 30-second cooldowns, and with Dreadstalkers being on a 20-second cooldown, I'd have to say in PvE, Dread Lash is the best. However, since we're talking specifically PvP here, I go Demonic Strength to add more to the Demonic Tyrant Burst. On this row, on the very far left, we have Demonic Calling. It's pretty much the same as Live, in which Shadow Bolt and Demon Bolt have a 20% chance to make your next call Stretchstalkers cost 1 less Soul Shard. That was a part of the nerf in the recent change. It used to be free, but again, Demonology got a major nerf the last time. Power Siphon, which instantly sacrificed up to 2 wild imps to generate 2 charges of Demonic Core. This is really good to keep uptime without having to sit and start casting more things. So this ends up making you look like you're not casting anything or doing anything, but in reality, you're just getting a lot more instant cast going out, which is my personal favorite because it generates a lot of soul shards. Doom, now it is quite worthless because it takes a full 30 seconds to do damage that's roughly 2 or 3 times more than a Demon Bolt, which is not too significant. Basically, it's kind of a step backwards, more towards the old days of Doom, where it will do a decent chunk of shadow damage after 30 seconds. If it kills a target, there's a 5% chance to summon a Doom card to fight for you for 25 seconds. So that's really neat. However, that Doom damage is not big enough to get that chance to kill a target, considering all the other damage coming out. Now on the next row, Demon Skin. This is a nerfed version compared to Live, in which it recharges your shield at a rate of 0.5% every second instead of 1% every second. And now it only caps out at 50% of your max health, down from 20, which is fine because we have a lot of passive defensive with a combination of Soul Leech that gives you a shield based on damage dealt, which Demon Skin will be regenerating, on top of Soul Link, which heals you for a percentage of the amount of absorbed Soul Leech accumulates. Burning Rush, roughly the same as last time, gives you a 50% movement speed increase. You can't be slow below 100%, but also damages for 4% of your max health every second, so pretty much the same as last time, probably the best for PvE. Dark Pact, this sacrifices 20% of your current health. It does not matter if you have his pet out or not anymore. This will flat out absorb a chunk of your current health, which is really good, and it shields you for 250% of the sacrificed health for 20 seconds. This is really, really good against really bursty classes. However, I just stick with Demon Skin because it's just a passive that it just works. That ends up absorbing the most in longer fights. The next row we have From the Shadows, which makes call Dreadstalkers, even if they miss their bite or not, it will make that target take 20% additional Shadow Flame damage from you for the next 12 seconds. Typically what everyone goes is this combo here. A lot of Demonology Warlocks I see always go this, and I usually get a lot of weird eyes for the setup I use. But From the Shadows, I will probably have to say that it is best for the PvE scenario, but in PvP, I much prefer this next talent, which is Soul Strike, which commands your Felguard to attack the damage, dealing shadow damage. Now, this thing does roughly 1k to 2k damage. These numbers are really off, so don't be fooled by that. It acts as an additional charge that spans 50-yard range, so that gives your Felguard a lot more uptime on the target, and it gives you a Soul Shard to boot. So this is a really good way to regenerate your Soul Shards without having to sit there and open up yourself up to an interrupt. Now, the next talent, personally, it needs quite a huge buff to warrant the what it has, but it summons a Vile Fiend for you that deals damage for the next 15 seconds. Now, throughout its whole duration, it does roughly 5k to 5.5k damage. I've tested it, and considering my max health, which is roughly 27k, that's not a lot for a talent slot, 1 Soul Shard resource, a 1.5 second cast, and a 45 second cooldown. So I don't believe it warrants all of that considering the other two options. On to the next row, since Shadow Fury is now baseline for everyone, you can reduce its cooldown by 15 seconds with Dark Fury, or you can go back to Mortal Coil, does exactly what it does on live, or Demonic Circle, which again does exactly what it does on live, except this time you get both the abilities. You get, when you select it, you get both Demonic Circle and Demonic Circle Teleport. So you don't have to make a macro or anything to get rid of this circle or anything. It's back to its roots, outside of being a talent instead of baseline. Now the next talent row, Soul Conduit, it's gone down to 15% chance to refund a Soul Shard. Inner Demons, this is a new one, where it passively summons a wild imp to fight for you every 10 seconds, and it has a 10% chance to also summon an additional demon to fight for you for 15 seconds. Now this is really handy for consistent fights, and you may be wondering why I have both. It's because Soul of the Netherlord, if any of you have it, will change Inner Demons, unless Blizzard changes it, which I believe they might. But this is very interesting because it also has a chance to summon Prince Malchezaar as one of the additional demons. However, he doesn't do anything special and hits very, very weakly. So that's a bit underwhelming, but it does have a chance to summon a variety of different types of demons to assist you. Grimoire of Felguard. This talent has been nerfed several times throughout the duration of the beta. It used to be Grimoire of Service, and now it's down to just Grimoire of Felguard. And now the duration is reduced from 25 seconds to 15 seconds, and now only deals 50% increased damage and is down from 100%. So this talent has gotten severely nerfed over the course of the beta. However, for the sake of the stun alone is why I will always tend to go with Felguard. Unless I have a partner who has a lot of stuns that I can rely on, then I may just go Inner Demons and higher ups because the legendary will become obsolete at level 116. So down to the bottom row, Sacrifice Souls, Shadow Bolt, and Demon Bolt deal 5% additional damage per demon you have summoned. So this basically gives the live Demon Bolt effect to Shadow Bolt and Demon Bolt, except split between the two, which is pretty handy when you start getting going and you have a lot of demons out. However, I've estimated an absolute max amount of demons you can have at a time is probably between 10 to maybe 15. So you're looking at your absolute peak, you'll be doing 50% more damage with Shadow Bolt and Demon Bolt. So just take that how you will. I just see it as kind of there. It does something. The next talent is Demonic Consumption, which makes your Demonic Tyrant destroy all of your imps and empowers him. I haven't tested this too much myself, so I don't know how much of a boost of damage it gives to him. However, I do not believe this talent is quite worth it because throughout all of the nerfs that Demonology Warlocks I've gotten through the beta, the imp seems to have been the one that hasn't been changed. The Tyrant has been nerfed significantly himself, and just sacrificing those imps seems like a loss of consistent DPS, especially considering a lot of people are picking up on Tyrant and starting to crowd control him now. So considering the Tyrant is very crowd controllable, it's kind of risky to use Demonic Consumption instead of just having the imps sit there and do their thing. The last one is probably the most fun of all the talents. It's called Nether Portal. It costs 3 Soul Shards and has a 1.9 second cast and a 3-minute cooldown. Basically what it does, it opens a portal for 20 seconds, so you only have 20 seconds. Every time you spend Soul Shards, you will also command demons from the Nether to come out and fight for you. So anytime you spend Soul Shards, some random demons will come out and start doing some damage with you. Now, this may sound amazing, which it does look like quite a spectacle since a lot of things come out, but each one of those demons do barely 1k damage throughout the entire duration. Like, if even. The only ones that do more than 1k are the Bile Scourge flyer things, which have an extra ability to just put a dot on them, which is pretty handy, but again, it's entirely random. You have to cast it. It takes up your entire set of beginner Soul Shards, and you only have a span of 20 seconds to utilize it as much as you can. So it's fun, but I don't see it being viable at all. Now, as you may see on the right, the PvP talents have changed. But right now, they're pretty much exactly the same as live, as concerning the choices, but we only have a slot for the top row that we had, and 3 slots for any of the other rows that we have. So you can be all out curses, get a curse of fragility, tongues of weakness lined up here, or you can go like this setup called Fell Hunter, Instinct Dreadstalker, Nether Ward. As for the actual choices we have, nothing has changed at all, but we now only have a selection of 3 of those that we want. Now, as for the damage that they do in duels, it is still quite significant despite having their damage cut in half. We can still win duels, but it's nowhere near as easy as it used to be. You can still win just about every duel, and with the huge kit that Demonology Warlocks have, You can pretty much come up with a plan or a way to take out just about any class in the game if you play things right and change according to their playstyle. The overall concept of the gameplay of Demonology is still roughly the same, except without having to count on a giant built-up Thought Kills consumption now. Now you just simply have to manage getting all the pets out as much as you can and surviving. That's pretty much all you have to do nowadays, on top of keeping everything maintained, keeping things flowing and going. With the exclusion of Demonic Empowerment and Life Tap, the overall flow of the spec is significantly better than it is on live. The global cooldown changes that have happened in the beta don't really feel very present at all for the Warlock, because there's still so many things that work well for you. You don't have to worry about, oh man, my Demonic Empowerment's about to wear out, I'm about to run out of mana, I need a Life Tap. You don't really feel chained. You don't feel like the global cooldown's a hindrance, because everything does have a hefty-ish cooldown. So by the time you get back to needing to use that ability again, thanks to the global cooldown changes, those abilities feel like they come off cooldown a lot faster. Another thing about the global cooldown changes, which greatly adds to the benefit of the Warlock, is that the diminishing returns cooldown, it has not changed at all from live. So that means with everything going a bit slower, the diminishing returns feel like they come off cooldown a lot faster now. So by the time you're done with your stun combo and you can finally get a fear off, it's more than likely that it's going to be off the DR for after using it like 3 times at the start of the fight. So the global cooldown, if anything, is a great boon to the Warlock, just from that fact alone. Concerning AoE pressure and the like going into Battlegrounds, I've tested it in a PTR, and we don't have that spread pressure with Doom anymore, and we don't have that huge influx of soul shards coming in, but we are still quite formidable in a one-on-one fight. In fact, most of our AoE seems to have been sacrificed through the changes for the sake of stronger single target potential. For me, I can see why, because then if you have this strong AoE spread potential, or why play an Affliction Warlock if you have this spread potential as Demonology on top of it doing a lot of single target damage. So I can see them trying to like tinker each individual spec throughout the game to do a specific action better than others, such as Affliction being for spread pressure and rotting things down, Demonology for controlling things, utility and the like, and Destruction for the big mega burst that everyone loves so much. So depending on the person, if you like seeing people slowly die, Affliction. If you want to see people just immediately get deleted, to be Destruction. Or if you just want to have that sense of control and being able to just save yourself and save others and lock people out of the fight for a good while, then Demonology would be the best. In terms of the fun factor for Demonology Warlocks, I will say that they are very enjoyable to play. In fact, they are so fun that I did do over 1,000 duels on Demonology alone, on top of leveling a Warlock to the 120, doing a bunch of PvE content, trying to level another Demolock to 120, and being able to sit through being bursted on and one-shotted by warriors, ret paladins, and rogues, and I still enjoy Demonology. My appeal to Demonology is that it has quite a bit of things to do and look out for. You have to make sure your pets are keeping up time, you gotta make sure that whatever you're doing, you don't remain doing nothing, you're always having to do something to maximize what's going to happen. You have to plan on what things you have and what you'll have soon, and you'll have to think around, do they have a way to stop my pets at this moment? Granted, I'm still not too good at managing all that yet, but with more practice, I'm sure one day I'll be able to do something relating to that. So as for the state of Demonology Warlocks right now, they're okay-ish at the moment. In terms of gameplay, they're doing very, very well. However, since Blizzard is recently starting to go through all the changes and all the readjustments, Demonology Warlocks right now rank pretty low in terms of damage. Demonology Warlocks damage got nerfed so much that sometimes, even if I get them through all of my stuns and all of my fears while doing damage to them the entire time, it will not be enough to get them even to 30%, 20%. And then I'm just simply stuck there having to take a lot of blows to the face until something becomes off cooldown or if the DR is refreshed. So that's a bit annoying, but that also adds in another skill factor in that if you dump everything at the start, it's not going to work out as well. And personally, I just need to get around the whole like, let's all in, burst them to death mentality and learn to play it smart and pace myself in between abilities. I do appreciate that approach of gameplay. So it is merely a small qualm I have at the moment, being so used to the whole Legion and Warlords of Draenor mindset of just burst them all in one go and then you win. Honestly, the more I think about it, Demonology is doing a lot of damage will kind of negate the role of Destruction Warlocks, because Destruction Warlocks are all about that big burst damage. Whereas if we have really strong sustain, we outdo the Affliction Warlocks and they'll be negligible. So I kind of like having to be a little bit behind on both, but relying on a metric ton of control and utility to win. because that makes the class a little more unique in that sense. This is why in 1v1 fights, Demonology Warlocks tend to do quite a bit better than Affliction Warlocks. Destruction Warlocks can still do fine. It just takes 2 giant Chaos Balls to the face and they can win. But Affliction, there's a lot of counters to all those spells, and a lot of classes right now can end things quick. So Demonology right now, because it has so many utility and so much CC and a really strong passive defense, they tend to do very well in 1v1 situations. But Demonology right now is in a really good state gameplay-wise. There's still a few more tweaks that need to be happening in the beta for things to be balanced out. Currently, I cannot beat almost any Fury Warrior. With the current stats of things, the Warlock I made during the beta and all of his starter gear makes him almost completely negligible. The stats just do not work well with Demonology at that low. But when I go on my main, the haste and all that is so significantly different that it feels like a complete 180 in terms of gameplay and wins and losses. Why I specify that is, last I checked, Fury Warriors, even in starter gear, can absolutely demolish someone decked out in Mythics and Legendaries if they play it right. Starter gear Fury Warriors. So there's still quite a bit of tuning that needs to be done, although the points in which I say these bits of audio are kind of scattered and sporadic throughout the days, so they could have changed by the time this video is uploaded. So how is the entire expansion looking after fighting so many people? The gameplay is a lot more enjoyable compared to Legion. This I can guarantee you. BfA is looking very well for the PvP community because, well, let's face it, at this point we're not asking for much since just about every expansion that's come around has been more oriented towards PvE players. But this is a different take because they're actually emphasizing world PvP with a whole world mode setting going on. This is refreshing because they're encouraging a lot more PvP to happen and they give extra incentive to make people toggle it on so that more World PvP can happen. It's a really enjoyable experience, and playing a Demonology Warlock, even leveling is fun. On live, I don't like really encountering too many like random fights a lot, because Doom is a slow burn. We're a really slow building class on Legion, and it just takes us a minute to get to our full potential. Whereas in the new setup in Battle for Azeroth, you got all these procs that you really want to use ASAP, so you feel more inclined to get into fights, which means they did something well. It makes the person want to play. So overall, Demonology Warlocks are in a pretty good shape gameplay-wise, with just a few more bits of tuning, and by the time launch is around, and probably a little bit of time after launch, things should balance out to where everything will feel very well balanced, because if you don't manage your CC right as Demonology, you can get absolutely destroyed. Whereas if you do manage your CC completely, the other person can hardly touch you at all, which is most likely going to result in a lot of complaints and yelling at you for playing a broken class in spec, which I've been through quite a bit already on the beta. Way later on in the expansion, I do foresee Demonology being really, really strong, considering how well and how much the haste is affecting their overall gameplay. But all in all, should you play Demonology Warlocks when they come around in BfA or in the pre-patch? I'd say absolutely.